All right, hello and welcome back to the Conversational Hypnosis Academy. Again, my name is Scott Jansen. Thank you so much for jumping on board with our brand new training. What we're going to be looking at today is a technique or method that's very close to my heart. It was something that when I first learned to become a hypnotherapist was something I utilized a lot because it was the only skill I had. And what I want to take you, for people that are listening to this product, is over the next couple of sessions starting to explore this idea of hypnotic convincers and how we can use hypnotic convincers to not only elicit trance, but actually start to strategize in a lot more of a convenient way of how to use it inside hypnosis, how to use it for hypnosis, but also how to use it to deepen trance and also prove the power of hypnosis to the actual clients that we work with. So we're very fortunate to have Marianne on board. Hello, Marianne. How are you?
Hi Scott, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for jumping on board with this. We spoke a couple of weeks back, and I know you were very keen to look at this side of hypnosis, but I just wanted to ask you before we get started and before we jump into the main content of what we're going to be going through, I was just curious, have you done any hypnosis training before or anything like that?
Yeah, I've done a bit of training and I've used scripts and haven't seemed to be working
Okay.
when I use scripts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
So
it just wasn't working for yourself or wasn't working for your clients? What was happening?
mainly for the client, it just doesn't seem to work on everybody,
Okay.
and I'm just wondering if there's more to it
Mm-hmm.
that can be done.
Yep. And I know
Because
you had a bit of a fascination with the conversational side of thing, which is our expertise. So hopefully this lands exactly or gives you exactly what you need to. You can use scripts with this idea and method, but also show you a way to almost dump the scripts for good, and how you can use this single idea to start to work with clients in a bit more of a convenient fashion, without all the setup and the things the scripts often tend to have and tend to come along with. We're going to get rid of all your worries and all the things that may prevent you from actually having a successful hypnotherapy session. Okay?
that would be great.
Excellent. All right. So what I want to do to set a bit of a context to where we are, the idea of what I have in mind is to start, like I said, to start to explore this hypnotic convincer. Now, have you heard, being you've done a little bit of training, Marianne, have you heard of this idea of a hypnotic convincer before?
I have heard of it, but I'm not too sure
Okay.
100% on it.
That's fine. So if you think about the idea of a hypnotic convincer, the idea of convincing somebody that they are in trance would be a necessary step for us to take as hypnotherapists. Would you agree?
Definitely.
Excellent. So what we're also going to look at is it can be called a hypnotic convincer or hypnotic phenomena. Now the hypnotic phenomena is a idea that's very scattered throughout the hypnosis industry, especially in the old text and old literature in hypnosis. But it's such a great idea, but a lot of hypnotherapists believe in the idea. They agree that it would be a profound thing to learn for themselves as a therapist, but not a lot of therapists know how to do it. They don't know how to create these hypnotic phenomena, but if they do, they don't know how to use them. So that's what I want to spend the next 3 or 4 sessions with you to show you how you can create these spontaneous phenomena, but how you can actually use it inside your hypnotherapy session for more success, and to also prove to your clients that they have been hypnotized. Okay, so if you recall the sessions you've done maybe with a couple of clients, what were the main key factors that you're running into that seem to have some problems around it?
Just clients not necessarily going into a trance.
Okay. Have you come across any clients that say something like this? I don't believe in hypnosis, or I wasn't hypnotized before?
Definitely, and that makes them really hard because they're coming into the session not believing it can happen.
That's right. And for you as a therapist, having that idea in your mind, how does that make you feel while considering that as an idea?
Well, it makes me feel nervous because if they believe that it can't be hypnotized, whatever I do is not going to work.
Yes, spot on. You're 100% correct. And this is exactly what this method's going to be about today. We're going to look at this deep trance orientation. So we're going to be orientating our clients to deep trance. But it's not just the fact of getting them into trance. We need to also prove it to them through the way of hypnotic phenomena like spontaneous movement or lack of ability to move or speak or forgetting ideas and memories very quickly. We're going to look at how we can create these spontaneously. But as we get into more advanced version of this method towards the end of our process, the next couple of sessions, we'll look at how we can not necessarily create them, but how to look for them, because they're always happening naturally as well. Okay. Yep. So just consider, as we go through our training together, just imagine, I guess we could say, how your success rate would skyrocket if you could bypass those people that say, you know what, hypnosis isn't real, or I can't be hypnotized. Imagine your success if you had something that was so simple to not tell them about, but show them, so they could not deny their own experience. Wouldn't that be a great tool to have?
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. All right, so what I want to do is let's just break down a little bit more context, and then what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is let's spend this session actually taking you through the process. And then what I'll do over the next 2 to 3 sessions after this initial session is start to break down the actual linear approach, the questions we can ask, the process, down to a formatted scheme, so you can actually use it, follow it. But the biggest thing for me is to make sure you can experience it. Would you be happy with that?
Definitely. It'd be awesome.
Excellent. All right, so before we get into this little demo that we're going to do in a moment, let's break down exactly what we're going to be getting over this next 3 to 4 sessions. So as we mentioned, we're going to look at the deep trance orientation. We're going to look at how to explore, or how we explore this idea of hypnotic convincers, how to bypass the unbelievers of hypnosis, the people that say, you know what, hypnosis is rubbish, I don't believe in it, or I've been hypnotized before, it didn't work. We're going to utilize these responses and use them to put them in trance. Also, to show, one of my favorites is to show potential clients the power of hypnosis. Okay. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody who's found out that you're a therapist and they want to know all about it?
Yes, all the time.
And what we're taught as therapists, and I don't want to knock this as an approach, is to sit there and tell our clients or potential clients what hypnosis is or what hypnosis isn't. Okay. Now, this has been done by numerous amounts of courses, so I don't want to rehash an idea that's already predominantly out there already and viewed as, you know, it's not a bad idea. What we want to do is not spend too much time telling our clients about hypnosis, but we want to spend some time showing them, because we want to show them so they can believe it instead of just listening to our words. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I know if I have a question about something, maybe not in the field of hypnotherapy, that if I'm looking for an answer while someone's telling me the idea around the question I've presented, I'm not really listening, or I'm not paying attention, or my mind drips off until I get to the part I really want to pay attention to. But if there was somehow that person could show me the answer to that question, or have me experience the answer that I'm looking for, I'd be a lot more in tune to listen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. We're going to look at how to master the utilization principle. So the utilization principle can be quite an advanced technique, but what we're going to explore is how can we utilize anything and everything our client says to us, but also how our clients feel. Okay. And we're also going to look at how to attach a therapeutic outcome to these hypnotic phenomena, which is a very cool tool to have, because it means that we can attach anything that happens with a client inside a session and direct it towards therapy. Okay, we're not just putting people in trance for the sake of it. We're going to utilize these trances because our clients come in for smoking problems, weight loss problems, anxiety issues, and whatnot. We want to start to work in a therapeutic way. So not only are we showing them the power of hypnosis, but they can actually get something from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Excellent. And the last big umbrella to all of this is we're going to be using external factors. We're also going to be using a client's anxieties and fears and worries about what hypnosis is and how it feels. And as with most therapists, we're taught to make our clients feel comfortable. We're taught to make sure they're ready to go, make sure there's no worries or anxieties, and if there is, find out what it is and what it isn't, all that sort of stuff, which is a great approach. But sometimes it can drag on and it can take a long time to get through. So what I want to introduce you to is how can we use those anxieties and those worries to actually elicit trance instead of working around them. We're going to work right through those problems to create a therapeutic outcome. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you'll be thanking your lucky stars when your clients come in and say, hey, I feel really anxious about hypnosis, or I'm a little bit scared. You can almost clap your hands with joy because you know exactly how to use it for a more positive outcome than not. Okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. So have you got any questions before we start about any of the criteria that we're going to be breaking down over the next couple of sessions before we get started?
No, I'm
Excellent.
looking forward.
Excellent. So how about we do this? Well, let's take you through a quick demo. It's not going to be the full demo because there's a couple of things I want to keep out of it in regards to the actual therapy. We can do that more in the last session, so we might get another demo involved. But what I want to take you through is the very simple process of this deep trance orientation. Now, we're going to be setting up the foundations for you to experience this hypnotic phenomena, whatever that might be. When we look at hypnotic phenomena, we're considering things like automatic movement, or you fall into trance straight away, or you get a bit of time distortion, or you find your body inability to move, or a little bit of inability to speak. I want you to experience these phenomena for a specific reason. One thing that I found as a therapist over the last 14 years of my life, the more I experienced the things I wanted my clients to, the better the outcome was. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's almost like we have to go there first to know exactly what it is about and what it feels like, because then we've got more opportunity to direct our client towards that way, and it allows us to understand exactly where a client could be inside the trance process or inside the hypnotic phenomena process, because we've got a rough idea because we've been there before. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. So let's set this up really, really simple. Let's take a couple of minutes to do this. Now, your only expectations for this is just to enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to feel pretty unusual, the normal reports that we get back. And we're just going to have a chat. Obviously, we are learning conversational hypnosis. So on my side, I'm not scripting any of this. I'm not writing any stuff down. We're just going to go with the flow, but I'm going to utilize a simple 4-step process that I'm going to introduce you to on the next session that'll break down this exact process I'm going to take you through now. So you'll have all the tools to basically do what I do after a little bit of practice. Does that sound all right?
That sounds awesome.
Excellent. All right. So are you seated right now, Marianne, or you're standing, or give me an idea of how you're positioned right now?
I'm seated at my desk at the moment.
Okay. So you're seated at your desk.
Yep.
And your hands free, feet on the floor. What else is happening?
My feet are on the floor and my hands are resting on top of my desk.
Okay. So feet are on the floor and hands resting on top of the desk. Okay. And you're feeling comfortable right now?
Yes.
Excellent. So what I'd like you to do in a moment is just consider those hands that are resting on the desk. And what I'm sort of curious about is hands can rest, and so can bodies, in totally different ways. And what I'm curious about is which one of your hands feels maybe a little bit more rested than the other one.
My left hand.
So your left hand feels more rested.
Yeah.
Left hand rested. And how are you feeling right now, knowing that that left hand can just rest like that?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? Excellent. So what I'm even more curious about now, if that left hand is resting more than the right, what's the right hand doing differently then than the left?
It feels a bit lighter.
It feels a bit lighter. It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, do you normally sit there in a comfortable position with one left hand that's resting while the right hand's feeling lighter?
Not normally, no.
Not normally. And are you surprised by this?
Yeah, because I don't really take much notice of your hands.
That's right, you normally don't take much notice. But you can notice that that left hand can rest while the right hand feels lighter, right?
Yes.
And it's an unusual thing to really consider, isn't it?
Yes.
And what's happening with that right hand that was feeling lighter before? How's that doing right now?
It's still feeling light.
Still feeling light. And how do you do that to make a right hand feel light?
I don't know.
You really don't know, do you?
No.
You really don't know how you can sit there and notice that the left hand can rest while the right hand does something completely different and feels lighter.
They're both tingling now.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah.
So how do you do that to go from a resting left hand to a lighter right hand now to be tingly? How do you do that?
I don't know.
You don't know. But you can feel it, can't you?
Yeah.
That's right. You can feel those hands. And how are you feeling right now?
A bit more relaxed in my chair.
Bit more relaxed in your chair. And did you know that your hands could teach you how to feel a bit more relaxed in your chair like this?
No.
No. Unusual to have a hand teach you something about relaxation, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can rest in that chair. And what's happening to that left hand right now, the one that was rested before?
It feels really heavy.
Feels really heavy. So the left hand's heavy. And the right hand?
They both feel warm.
You mean they've gone from different sensations to tingly, now feel warm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unusual to have hands that have their own feelings like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
There you go. And what's happening to the rest of you right now?
I feel like I'm melting into my chair.
Feel like you're melting. Nice feeling to have, isn't it?
Yep.
You can melt right on into your chair while noticing your hands can do something different to teach you about going into hypnosis more easily. And this isn't the normal way you normally go into trance, is it?
No.
But it probably feels the same or more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To have hands that can teach you to melt into a chair. And what I'm curious about now is I wonder how your unconscious mind will surprise you next by lifting one of your hands all by itself. And do you know which hand would lift first?
A right one?
The right one. So you think the right hand would lift first.
Yeah.
So what's happening to it right now?
It's thinking about it.
It is thinking about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you normally have hands that have their own thoughts?
No.
A little bit unusual, isn't it?
Yeah.
That a hand can think right on about lifting by itself. That hand thinking. And I'm curious. I wonder if it's thinking about what part of the hand will lift first. Maybe the fingers, maybe the palm. Maybe it will decide to just lift the whole arm up, while the left hand continues to get heavier and sticks. Unusual thoughts for a hand, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how are you feeling right now, knowing your hands are thinking their own thoughts?
Quite relaxed, actually.
Quite relaxed. Quite relaxed. And what's happening to that right hand now? Has it made a decision yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Must be a bit of stuff to think about first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can be curious about what a hand needs to think about before it lifts all by itself. While your mind can think about things totally different than that right hand lifting. And the whole time, that right hand's been considering how it will lift. What's happening to that left hand right now?
It's just really heavy and relaxed on the desk.
Really heavy and relaxed. And what part of the hand seems to be feeling more heavy and more relaxed?
Probably the thumb joint area.
Probably the thumb area. So I wonder if the left hand's been thinking its own thoughts, different than what the right hand's thinking, that helps you relax even more. Unusual thoughts that hands can think all by themselves, that are teaching you a great deal about how you can experience hypnosis in a new way that gives you more. Experiences like this, and it's a pleasant experience, isn't it?
It is.
And what's that right hand thinking about now?
It's really light and it's lifted off the desk.
It's really light and lifted all by itself. So it must have made a decision. Just like the way you could make a decision as a therapist. So have your clients experience trance like this. Be a nice thing for them to experience, wouldn't you say?
Sure.
That they can not only experience trance, but see it as if their own right hand was lifting higher. And I wonder if you could really consider how this experience you're having now could shape a client's reality you work with into a brand new way. How a lifting right hand by itself could help your clients experience a beneficial outcome for therapy. All the time enjoying this experience. And I just want you to take some time just to sit on those ideas. And just enjoy this. There's a lot to be learnt. You may start to notice, just like that hand lifted by itself, it can begin to descend back towards the desk, as if it's had all the thoughts it needs just for this small demo. You may even begin to notice that trance is starting to wear off now, having served its purpose, knowing that even though there's some more lessons to be learned today, through our interaction, your unconscious mind can continue to answer those questions, even when you're thinking nothing about what's occurring right now. That's a nice thing to think about, isn't it?
Yes.
So just let that all settle in. Hand may be starting to descend. You might find that starting to feel a little bit more revived, as if your body's returning back to normal, as if it's all yours again. And you want you to take some time and just enjoy this process of coming out of trance. And you let me know when it's all settled in and ready to move on from this very pleasant experience.
I'm ready.
Excellent, great job. So let's let that settle in a bit. A different way to experience trance, isn't it?
Yeah, it was rather weird.
Weird's a good answer. Excellent. So how was that for you? Run me through what types of things were you feeling? How was the whole experience for you, other than feeling a little bit weird?
Well, it was very easy to be relaxed.
Yeah. And something to point out as well is, did I at any point tell you to feel relaxed?
No.
So this is something that's fundamental with this type of process, as I'm going to break down a couple of little key points in this, but just because it's come up, I think it's important, is to say that as a therapist, a lot of therapists always tend to lead towards relaxation. They repeat that idea of relaxation over and over and over again, which is fine. I don't want to knock it as an approach. But you experience trance the way you wanted to, and I had no input in on it. I allowed you to experience it, and my main role right then was to just gain feedback to see about where you were. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what this does for us as a therapist, just looking at this very briefly as as just a simple opening tool, is we can spend less time telling the client how we want them to feel and reverse roles. Allow you to experience either relaxation or calmness or body softening, whatever the case may be. And I'm asking you how you're feeling, and then I'm using those things or utilizing those ideas and those feelings to help you go into it more. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It really takes the pressure off us as a therapist to think of, wow, what do I say next? What do I need to do? By creating this feedback loop, which we're going to get into in a short second, it just creates a very pleasant experience, not only for the client, but also the therapist, because we can be just as involved inside the trance as the client without actually it seeming like I'm just talking at you. I'm becoming involved inside the process as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So let's spend about 10 or 15 minutes to break this process down, just the very start of it, knowing that over the next 3 to 4 sessions together, we're going to not only break it down even more fully, but start to refine and add some advanced strategies to it. So you can not only get an outcome like you just experienced, but it's on a very consistent basis, which means that you can begin to work with clients that would seemingly be absolutely difficult, but it will be pleasant and they'll really enjoy the experience. And the most important thing to remember is this whole process is based around, we want them to experience trance, because you can't deny your own experience. Okay, if we tell them about it, they might think we're lying, or they might think that he or she's just telling me this because they want to make me feel good. If they see it, they could say, well, it's a bit of trickery, this person set this up, or the therapist paid the client to do this, or it's just a stage hypnosis show where people just follow along because it's a lot of fun. But if you experience things like you just did, you can't really deny that, can you?
No.
All right, so let's look at the first 4 steps we're going to look at. Now, you may be familiar with a couple of things. I know you've looked at a little bit more of my work in the past, but I want to introduce you to this as a more formal approach with an extra step added onto it. So let's bring your attention to the first 3 steps I follow, and then we're going to add a 4th to it. And this will be something that we will fall back on as a small step-by-step process of our time together. Okay? So are you familiar with the ABS formula inside hypnotherapy?
Yes.
Okay, so we know the A stands for attention, which I'll point out exactly where I got your attention. The B is the bypass critical factor, and the S is to stimulate an unconscious process. And I'll point those 3 steps out, so when you listen back to the experience you had, you'll be able to pinpoint them, and they're very, very obvious. The 4th step we're going to use is what we call the utilization principle. So it's A, B, S, U. We've got the attention, we're bypassing critical thinking. The S is to stimulate the unconscious process or an unconscious moment, as you're probably more familiar with. And the U is to utilize whatever unconscious moment or unconscious process we notice during the interaction. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to treat this, no, we're on a training call today, I'm going to treat this the exact way I set this up to show you the first setup stage to get your attention and to move through the rest of the process. Now, we're recording this on voice. We don't have each other on camera. We haven't, set this up beforehand or anything like that. We've jumped straight onto the call. So I'm going to treat this as if you were an actual paying client. So the first thing I want to do, or the first thing you'll do with your client, is, because we can't see our client, and this is equally true even though you might be able to see your client with a camera, we'll just use it without for now because that's the environment we're in, is to ask a client how they're seated, or are they standing? Are their feet on the floor, or are their legs crossed? How are their hands? Is their hand holding a phone, or is it holding a microphone? Are they comfortably rested on the lap, or are they they folded out in front because maybe they're a little bit cold? We want to find out how a client, or what type of environment the client is sitting in, to start the process. Now, why do you think this would be important to utilize first, to run this first step first, to make sure we know how a client's seated, etc.? Why is this important?
So you can get an idea of where they're at?
Correct, yeah. This way, I'm not guessing. Now, if I said to you, imagine this experience if you're seated like you are, and I said, okay, as you're standing there, Marianne, what have I just done?
Said I'm standing when I'm seated.
That's right. And it becomes a mismatch. So already your conscious, or your unconscious, if you will, points out that I've made a mistake. Now, there's nothing wrong with making a mistake, but you know what happens when you make too many mistakes? You end up with a very hard session to work with. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the first thing I want you to do is just simply get as much information from your client about what their experience is like. And I even do this when I can see my client. If I can see them, usually I see them from roughly about the chest or shoulder area up towards the top of their head. I still want to ask them, hey, are you leaning on the desk? Are your hands folded? Are they in your pocket? Are your feet on a stool, or are they flat on the ground? Do you have socks or shoes on? Can you feel the carpet or the tiles under your feet? Because I can utilize any of those sensations for the next part. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so the more information, the better. We don't want to be guessing at this point. We want to be on the ball step by step by step without making too many mistakes. Okay, the next part is the B. We bypass critical thinking. Now, that critical thinking is what your clients present to you and say, hey, hypnosis isn't real. I've been hypnotized before, it didn't work, and you can't do this to me. And you've heard plenty of that before, right?
Yes.
So the usual thing a therapist will do is tend to argue the point. They'll say, well, maybe the hypnotist did this, maybe they did this wrong, but I want to let you know that hypnosis is about this, it's about that. And they go through this whole long spiel about what hypnosis is. Now, is it at this point, do you think the client's listening intently, or do you think they're just drifting off and thinking their own thoughts?
They're probably drifting off.
Wouldn't you? If you were arguing with someone and then someone sat there and tried to argue their way of viewing reality, you wouldn't really pay attention, would you?
No.
So what we need to do is bypass critical thinking. We need to bypass this as quick as possible. So this is the conscious mind. So if you can remember, if you do have the thoughts of the process we went through, at what point do you think I bypassed your critical thinking? At what point did I grab your attention and bypass your critical thinking?
When you asked me to put focus on my hands?
Correct, yeah. And you said it quite wonderfully during the session. You don't normally pay attention to your hands, correct?
No, yeah. Well, yes, I said that.
Yes,
no,
absolutely. And yes, you don't. Normal in normal living reality, we don't. But something interesting happens is the body is always having these different sensations. So the attention, I asked you how you were seated. I started a conversation, so you're attentive to what I'm saying. I'm getting some feedback. I'm not just talking at you. Then I drifted your attention to your hands, or a part of your body that was feeling, I think we said, more heavier than the other, if I recall correctly. And the bypass happens when you found the hands resting and then one of them was feeling different than the other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And all I need to know right now as a therapist is, are you following along? So we found the sensations in your hands. And then I said, which one is feeling more of that sensation than the other? It's a very unusual question, isn't it?
It is.
Because it's not something you'd normally ask somebody. And what this does is bypass normal thinking to an unusual process. The reason I like the word unusual or different is because that's what hypnosis is. It's unusual, it's different, it's not the same as normal waking reality. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And if we look at the S part, the S part actually follows closely behind. At what point did we start to stimulate an unconscious process or an unconscious feeling?
I guess when you were repeating back what I told you.
Correct, yeah. What I'm doing right there is once you say, oh, my left hand's feeling heavy and my right hand's feeling lighter, all I'm doing is echoing back your experience to make it larger, to make it grow. I'm stimulating an unconscious process or unconscious feeling, which is the numbness, the lightness, the tingling, the warmth. It could be a mixture of any. And I'm saying, that's right, you are experiencing this, so put more attention on it so you can experience more of it. And the more we experience of an unconscious process, the more unconscious you become, which equals trance, doesn't it?
Yes.
So let's look at the U part, which is the utilization principle, which is the governing principle to this whole method. So at what point did I use the utilization principle throughout that process? When did I first start to bring this into the equation?
When you linked up about me being a therapist with my hands.
Yep, that's definitely one of them. And if you think about the whole thing, wasn't it just the whole utilization principle, the whole process anyway?
Yeah.
Was I telling your hands how they should feel?
No.
Was I telling you how you should relax into trance?
No.
Was I telling you how to experience the process?
No.
Who was telling me that?
I was telling you.
That's right. And as soon as you gave me anything, whether it's a feeling, a sensation, a thought, I utilize whatever you give me. And that's the key point I want everyone to understand here. I want to use whatever you tell me. And it doesn't even have to matter if I don't know how to utilize it. The most simple and easy way to utilize anything that's occurring that may be a little bit weird or unusual, remember the unconscious process, I just repeat it back to you. So this whole thing is basically, as a client to therapist, are you not as the client doing all the work for me and I'm just repeating things back to you on a very simplistic level?
Yes.
Very simple, isn't it?
It is.
And look at the results we got. We went from resting, lightness, heavy, lifting by itself, which is the arm lifting or arm levitation, which is famous throughout the hypnotherapy industry. But we did it in a couple of steps, and I wasn't forcing you to experience and saying, hey, just play along with me. You were experiencing it, and I noticed at some points it was quite surprising for you. And as soon as you gave me the feedback, I just repeated it back to you and helped it grow and helped it ratify to give you more of a trance experience. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's a very simple 4-step formula. We've got the ABS, the attention, bypass, the bypass critical thinking and stimulate the unconscious process. And then I'm just utilizing whatever unconscious process you give me. And if I utilize enough of them and help them grow, no matter how small they start off with, as it grows bigger and bigger and bigger, your unconscious mind takes over more parts of the trance experience, which leaves your conscious mind behind, and we get hypnosis, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all I want to cover for today, as this is just the first part of the method itself, and I wanted to break down the 4 simple steps to this. Did you have any questions about the experience you just that you just went to, or just those 4 simple steps that we just discovered?
No, not at the moment. It was good though.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And what we're going to do over the next few sessions together is start to explore it, refine little bits, but also work out how we can utilize those 4 steps, the ABSU, to be more strategic, but also add in the actual therapeutic outcome. Now, I did a little bit of this just because it's part and parcel of what we like to do as therapists. We're going to learn how we can attach any unconscious process to a conscious learning or to create unconscious pattern itself to give the client a therapeutic outcome. That way you've got a whole process, including the therapy, to have your clients try on as a part of their trance experience. How does that sound?
It sounds good.
Excellent. Well, I'm really glad you got to enjoy that. I'm glad you got to experience it. Hopefully it was It was a little bit different, a little bit unusual than what you're normally used to, but you're going to have access to that little demonstration we did. So what I suggest you do is re-listen to it with your notes and just pick out yourself. Where's the A start? Where does the B start? Where does the S start? Where does the U start? And what you'll find is I just cycled through those 4 steps over and over and over until I allowed you to sit and rest on the process for a bit and allowed trance to really take over. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's all we're going to do for now, as it's just the opening montage into the whole method itself of the deep trance orientation. We've orientated you to a different style of trance. We will catch up this time next week and we'll start to explore a little bit more format, but explore some more advantages that this process has over others and start to look at some advanced maneuvers we can add to it to make it more refined, give it more sizzle, and really wow your clients with something new. How does that sound?
That sounds awesome. I can't
Excellent,
wait.
Marianne. Thank you so much for taking part in this. We'll catch up the same time next week. And if there's any questions for that, make sure you get in contact with me. But we look forward to taking you through the process again this time next week to explore a little bit more in depth of what it's about. Okay?
Thanks, Scott.
You're very welcome. You have a great day, okay?
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.